Now, when people hear about this, well, government officials going out to Facebook, going out to other things, they kind of think, oh, Big Brother kind of monitoring our conversations. And that's what we're talking about at all. Actually, what we're talking about is a much more kind of a healthy, I think, real, unfiltered conversations that we're having. You know, even debates. I mean, we're living right now in what's often called the attention economy, where information right now is ubiquitous. It's available to anyone, and it's not a scarce resource any longer. The scarce resource is people's attention. And, you know, I look at this and I keep thinking that in this sort of economy environment, what we need is actually more public officials who are well known within their certain areas, and to be on Twitter, to be on Facebook, to where people are pushing information their way and they're pulling information from all of their contacts. But that requires actually being out there in the social media, having those kind of unfiltered conversations. Now, that's the sort of thing that's very, very scary to many public officials, but I think that's the direction we're moving in, whether it's in national security, in health and human safety, human services. You know, one example of an interesting example we talk about in the study is the Food and Drug Administration in the United States. Most government agencies don't have big PR budgets. They don't do a lot of advertising necessarily. And so when they need to get out information quickly, it's sometimes difficult to do so, whether it's a food and, you know, recall or something. And the Food and Drug Administration had an issue with peanuts a number of months ago. And what they did was they actually went onto the social media sites and Facebook. They put out various things that allow people to take that information and put it on their Facebook pages, to Twitter it, and so forth. And they were able to reach more people in a short period of time than they ever had before through this sort of thing, other than simply using mass media. So I think it's a great way of actually getting information out, but also pulling information in from the best experts around the world.
Absolutely, and we see so many examples, whether it be pandemic planning, emergency response, numerous, limitless ways for governments to be more ubiquitous in their communications, and at the same time tapping into what's happening on the web in terms of citizen needs for information in times of crisis and otherwise.
My favorite example of this, Paul, is the red balloon story. Have you heard of the red balloon story? The DARPA, which is our Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA actually invented the internet. Okay, this is the firm out of the U.S., and they had an experiment where they wanted to see what's really going on with all the social media and the social networks. And so their experiment was essentially that they had 9 red balloons that they let up into the air in all different parts of the country, and no one knew ahead of time where they were. And what they did was they had a competition to see who could actually identify those the most quickly. And it turns out that a team from MIT, who only heard of the competition 4 days earlier, were able to identify all those balloons in 9 hours. Okay, this is the sort of thing that could have taken weeks or months before. How were they able to do it? They set up a network sort of system where they gave incentives, and actually they did it all through Facebook and Twitter, essentially, and through people getting in touch with another person and another person, another person. So it was actually showing the network effect. And I think, you know, the lesson of the red balloon story, the lesson of what happened in Iran in terms of the protests and how Twitter was used, and even now how we're seeing the social media play a big impact in Haiti in the response, means that this is an incredibly important tool for governments to allow them to move much more quickly and be much more agile than they ever were before. We need to understand this a lot better. And in this report, we try to point out several different ways of actually making this happen and overcoming some of the challenges to using social media.